I guess
I'm just kidding.
I guess I should post that.
He's at the office still
Why?
because of this system.
We're live, by the way.
So,
can I get the live stream over here? God damn it! I need that over here. Come here, give it to me. Oh, Jesus! This stuff keeps popping up. Hold on, I'm gonna get this live stream before we get started. I'm gonna post it to the. There we go. Control. Oh, you suckballs. Control C. Come over to Slack. Say live stream. There's a couple of people that actually look for this. Live stream. I don't know. Does that work? Yeah. Okay. Well, hello, Thomas.
why, hello there, Eric.
How are you doing?
Oh boy, I am tired.
I'm a little tired myself. We had an all-day client meeting today, which was good. It was kind of it was our client sitting us down as a complete team and talking about their visions for the future and projects that they want to work on. It was great because they have a ton of projects. So it looks like we're going to be busy for a while, which is always nice to hear.
Nice.
But why are you so tired?
We're in crunch time. We're pushing hard on the latest version of our site, and it's one of those things that you just sort of, when you're salary, you just sort of stay at your desk until 9 p.m. because you have to.
Yeah, I remember. I remember those days. It's funny because, and I don't know if this is the case on the deadline you're working on, but I've worked on projects before in the past where some sort of business manager or project manager will put an arbitrary deadline on a project, and all of a sudden it's like everybody's got to do whatever they can to meet that deadline, where there's actually no real impact if you don't meet the deadline. It's like there's no we've done all this marketing, we said we're going to launch this day, so we have to hit this day sort of thing. It was just some project manager saying, okay, we should be done by the end of October, and all of a sudden everybody's stressing out because they're trying to reach that deadline. And sometimes you just got to take a step back and like, okay, what's really the consequence if we don't reach this deadline? And really the only consequence you're really worried about is the financial impact. So I always find deadlines kind of, I don't know, funny.
Yeah, I liked how they did it over at business.com.
How was that?
But do you remember the Kraken?
The Kraken?
Yeah, giant project that they were working on that that they didn't have a date. They didn't have a deadline until they knew they could hit a deadline. So, there was a lot of internal promotion about how cool this thing was and how everyone was working on it, but there wasn't any external promotion until the team had decided, oh yeah, now it's ready for a deadline, and so then we'll put a deadline on it. They had a target. They had a target, but they didn't have a deadline.
That's interesting.
Yeah. For me, it's we do have all this marketing going out. We have a team of salespeople and marketers and everybody who's got all their material ready and they're ready to start selling it. So, and I'm also
that's
not
a
in
different
a position to challenge deadlines.
No, definitely. But deadlines are definitely one of those things you want to be careful if you decide to challenge. You want to make sure you're in a good position to challenge them. So, we had our meetup this week. You were there. We had our Laravel meetup. Saw a great talk on polymorphic models. given by you?
I was gonna say the great talk was Kalen's talk about accessors and mutators.
I went to the bathroom. Apparently, I missed it because it was a very short talk.
It was short. It's it can be a daunting subject, but the actual content of it is pretty small once it's well explained.
I did appreciate Kalen stepping up there and doing a quick presentation for us. Kalen, I work with Kalen at DiegoDev. He is up in Seattle. Recently, when I went up to Seattle, I took some time out to make sure I went to visit him and his family and, just buy him a beer. But for this all-day client meeting we had today, the client actually flew Kalen in because Kalen works on the project and they wanted to make sure he was part of this conversation. So Kalen had been in town for a couple days and he was here for the Laravel meetup and stepped up and did a quick talk. So I thought that was fantastic. I do really appreciate the fact that he did that.
Yeah, it was good to see him. And him coming to town for that really got me hyped up for something else too, which was the Laracon coming to San Diego prospects. I'm moving and I'd love a good excuse like Laracon to come back to San Diego and visit everybody.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think you're going to have that excuse.
Yeah.
I was working pretty hard to bring Laracon to San Diego. I've been bugging.
Well, don't say you were working too hard on it.
Well, I've been bugging Taylor about this for years, and he kind of got my hopes up. We exchanged some DMs. We looked for some venues, but ultimately, I have it under pretty good authority. It won't happen. I don't know for sure.
I think the dick pic was a bad idea.
It won't be official until they actually release the landing page for Laracon. But I got it under pretty good authority that San Diego's out of the running, which I was disappointed in. So I'm going to have to start working on him for 2018, I guess.
Yeah, here's hoping. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Yeah, I told him I'm like, I'll still go, but I'm going to be there with my arms folded and a very angry look on my face the whole time. So that should send a message. I don't know. Hey, did you notice at the meetup I was rewarded? So I'm not drinking my Lagavulin today.
I see that. That's very unusual.
Yeah, a little Johnny Walker Black was given to me by one of our members. I don't know if I should call out his name or not, but I've spoken of him in the past. I'll say that much. We've been working together. We've been working together on a couple of projects or one project, and I've been kind of doing some mentoring with him. And he used me as a reference to get a job. He got the job. He wanted to show his appreciation, and that is a great way to show your appreciation. I just want to put that out there.
That is a handy way to do it.
Yeah.
Johnny Walker's one of those things where it's like the current security threat level colors. I just don't understand what their coloring system is.
They've got
red and black and blue.
Johnny Walker Black is pretty good, but yeah, there's some colors that are more expensive. I don't know what they are, but I'm very happy with my Johnny Walker Black.
You seem pleased.
I am. It's a little lighter than my Lagavulin. It's not as harsh, I think but a little smoother. I don't know if I'd say smoother. Just a little lighter. It's like drinking a Corona and a Corona beer. It's still beer. It's still good. It's not as potent as say a stout, but it's good. I'm enjoying it. And what was cool is I found out in our last meetup, not only did my buddy who got me the Johnny Walker got a job, but there was another member who got a lead, ended up getting a position through SDPHP. And
nice.
It's like that is the best thing to hear when you hear that. Members coming up saying, hey, I went to the job board. I saw a job. I let them know I was a member of the group. I got an interview, and now I start work there. So that's always great. Yeah. Sometimes you don't want people to get jobs. We have a guy with our company who are the first guy who's actually kind of leaving the company to work full time. He's leaving the whole contractor gig and getting a full time job. And it was kind of
quite a good full time job too.
I don't know about that. I don't know how
stoked
good it
for
is.
him.
I don't know how happy I am for him.
Oh, you made that clear.
Yeah, I'll continue to make it clear.
Couple Guinnesses in, you started getting punchy.
Oh, we had a good time with him today. So he was at the client meeting as well, and we had a pretty good time with him today. So I am happy for him. But yeah, he's a super valuable talent, and you know, he's lucky wherever he goes. They're lucky to have him. So, see some other general conversation. Did you want to say something?
I've got a couple news items.
We're not at the news yet, buddy. I told you I got a lot of stuff to talk about.
News makers.
Why do you want to go? You just want to jump right into the news.
I thought we'd cover news at the beginning. We start with the news items and then
we never covered news at the beginning. Do you even participate in this podcast?
Not that I can remember.
If I had my way, we wouldn't even get to the news. We'd have so much interesting stuff to talk about that the news would just not even be there.
But people come to us for the news.
Because you really think that's why they come?
I have no idea why people are coming to us. We have way too many listeners for what I thought we would be doing.
It's starting to stress you out, isn't it?
No, it's starting to stress you out, which is hilarious because to me, it's just a number on a page. I'm so used to dealing with fake data that I assume everything I see on websites is just randomly generated data.
Yeah, no, that
new Lorem Ipsum podcast is great.
So the other things I wanted to talk about is I redid the PHPUgly website.
Yes.
Yeah. Before, I don't know if you remember, I explained the workflow before, but I had this vision in my head where we would take our show notes in GitHub, do it in Markdown, and I was going to write the script that would pull in the Markdown and place it into these templates, and I would build websites using Katana, and that just never happened. I mean, I was using Katana to build the website, but I was copying and pasting the MD5. Then I'd pull in the SoundCloud snippet so that we had the player. It just never worked out. It was never as automated as I wanted it to be.
Sure.
So it became a little bit of a pain in the butt to handle. And the other thing I was doing with it is because I was using Katana. Katana was one of these static generators websites. So the reason I went with Katana is because it used Laravel Blade syntax to create the static pages. But once you were done building, it was just static. It was just a static website. So just for fun, I ended up deploying it to Firebase, which is Google bought Firebase a while back. It's this Google data store, and they hosted web pages. I'm like, hey, I wonder if I could deploy there. So I was being lazy, and I did that. But yeah, there was a lot of things that I wanted to do that I couldn't do, and didn't feel like messing around with Katana templates and all that. And I'd been talking with Matt Lantz over at Larachat, and he's like, "Hey, I wrote a CMS." I'm like, "Oh yeah, what did you write?" And he goes, "Oh, it's called Quarx." And I'm like, "Quarx?" It was a Quarx. I think that's how you pronounce it. Quarx, yeah. So I went and looked at it, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, this he has it so you can actually drop Markdown in there." So I'm like, "Yeah, this might work." So I started playing around with it. I actually submitted to him a couple pull requests, and he merged in a few of my pull requests, and I've spent about a week migrating the template over and all the shows over, and now that's what we're running on. So it's Laravel with this Quarx CMS system pulled into it, and it's working pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. It's fun to tinker around with it a little bit. So that's fun.
Yeah.
And what's cool is, I can create an account for you, and you can actually go in there and edit a few things. It's like, well, once we're done recording, you're pretty much done with your PHPUgly duties, huh?
Yeah, I like to take a very hands-off approach towards the podcast.
Yeah. Let's see. What else do we have?
It's a blame-shifting technique. It's just inherent to me.
We should talk about our holiday schedule. Are we gonna establish a holiday schedule? Because
I think we have.
Well, we've established a holiday schedule for the user groups, but we haven't for the podcast.
Oh, yeah, we're absolutely
good.
Yeah, we'll keep recording.
Fuck you.
We'll burn right through Christmas and Thanksgiving, man.
I don't think so. I think so.
We're
gonna take a hiatus. Huh?
People want to hear the post-turkey podcast. They want to hear us. We record on a Thursday.
They listen to turkeys every day.
We will definitely have a podcast where we sit down and go, oh God, I ate too much.
Yeah, you might be doing that one on your own. I don't know if I can sell the wife on that one. I went back and looked at it. You realize we've recorded a podcast on my wedding anniversary and on my kid's birthday. And so, yeah, I'm going to have to draw the line at some point. I mean, I'm pretty happy with our streak right now, but yeah, we might have to break that in November. We have to skip a week.
You think Thanksgiving's going to take priority over one of your kids' birthdays or your wedding anniversary?
I got to show some effort. Either that or we move it to a Saturday. I don't know. We got to think about something.
We can record a day early or something.
Yeah, we might need to do that. We'll see. I do like the little streak we have going, so I don't know.
And I always good holiday themed show. And mix up the music. I can wear a turkey waddle.
I'm gonna throw you a softball here. I actually had two doom and gloom things I wanted to talk to you about, but I noticed you actually have one of them as a card, so I'll save that there. The other thing I want to talk to you about. Oh, I actually got two more things to talk to you about. See, this is what I'm saying. We're 15 minutes in the show and haven't even hit the news yet.
You haven't even hit a single card yet. You're working completely off script.
This is what I'm saying. I got to keep you. I can't give you cards for everything, or otherwise you start to queue up your responses, and they're not as real. They're not as organic. So I like to hit you. Yeah, I like to hit you with a few things. Let's see what else. So Apple, right? Apple.
Oh, yes.
What do you think about the Apple announcement? Do you care? I know you don't really care.
I am pleased as punch.
Why is that?
I'm not a huge fan of Apple.
Mm-hmm.
I fall really on the indifferent side of the spectrum. Nice OS, very pretty design, grossly overrated and too expensive.
Overpriced for sure, yeah.
And the fanboyism is very strong with Apple. People are Apple people. And
no question.
Yeah, when a company does something that makes the true fanboys look at it and go, I don't know. I just sort of lean back in my chair and twiddle my fingers and go.
So are you referring to the OLED
the OLED touchscreen?
Yeah.
And the completely missing escape key.
As a Vim guy, that breaks my heart. I take it as a personal attack. Now,
it really
with that said, John actually reminded me, and I don't even think about this because I use Vim. It's kind of reflex for me now. I don't use my escape key. A very long time ago, I mapped my JJ. So when I'm in insert mode, if I want to escape out, I just hit JJ. And that actually takes me back to normal mode, which is what you would typically use the escape key for. So I don't use the escape key, But I do use the escape key when I SSH to servers and I don't have my customized Vim settings on that server. So
Right.
it's still a requirement. And so the Vim community, or the Apple fanboy Vim community, is saying, well, just map your escape key to your caps lock key, because nobody uses that. And I'm like, okay, first off, I have the same problem because I have to do that on every server I ever touch. So that alone is a headache. The second thing is, that's just not the right answer. That is the wrong answer.
There's something to be said for muscle memory, and people who are currently using Vim on Macs, the proposition of upgrading to a Mac that does not have an escape key or has a completely remapped escape key is not appetizing.
Yeah.
Yes, there are solutions, but they are solutions to a problem that Apple introduced.
Yeah. And I was telling a couple people today, I'm like, I don't know. I feel like this touchscreen toolbar thing that they have is gimmicky. I mean, it just doesn't. It's like, what functionality? There's nothing I do with my keyboard where I've been like, well, I wish I had this functionality where I could just scroll with a little touchscreen right here. That would be so much better. It's like, no, and the only thing that's going to enhance are Apple software. Right. It's not like an open source Audacity will tie into this. I just can't see that happening. I mean, maybe it will happen, but I don't know. There's not enough driving factor for me to say, oh yeah, I've got to have that. That's fantastic.
Well, and visually, as far as your eyes go too, this is a whole new behavior. You've been taught to not look at your keyboard while typing, and now there's actual dynamic content being displayed on the keyboard. People are going to have to get used to this. It's
right, and it's going to change depending on what application you have running.
Right.
What's displayed there is going to change,
or the context of the application. Even, I mean, It's just a bad idea. It's the kind of thing that Steve Jobs would have said, that's a good idea, but never ever put it in a product.
Yeah.
Like there are a million reasons that will not work correctly. And I mean, it's replacing the F key section of your keyboard, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
How frequently did you use the F keys in the first place?
Well, so that's interesting. This was my other comment, was on the Mac, the laptop, the F keys actually have two modes. They have the function mode, and then they have another mode where one's a volume control, one's a brightness control. So my question was, what's in that toolbar by default? Is it the function key? Is it the volume control? And I understand to some extent it's customizable, but I don't want to have to customize that. It just seems like so much additional. I don't know. It's not adding enough benefit. Now, where it does add benefit, I will put this out there. We have a guy working with us who's been waiting for this announcement because he needs to buy some new hardware. And when he saw this, he made a very good point. He was like, well, this is good because I don't know if I'm going to buy this, but I know I'm going to buy a Mac, a PowerBook. He's like, so at very least, I can buy the older model PowerBook at a substantial discount now, because that hardware had not been refreshed in a long time, but it still had that premium price on it. So typically Apple will reduce those prices to get that inventory out of their warehouses. Right. So he's and I looked at the newer Mac. The only thing I didn't like about the older Macs, it was the biggest thing that I thought was a shortcoming, was that the biggest hard drive you could get on it at the time was 500 gig solid state. If you wanted to go the solid state route, which I don't know why you wouldn't on a laptop now. So the biggest drive you could get was 500 gig. And I do know on the new one, I think it goes up to 2 terabytes, which is good. I think that's a good number for a laptop. But I lived on my 500 gig solid state for 5-6 years. So, yeah, maybe that's fine, but yeah, with the exception of the bigger hard drive on the new hardware, I don't have a real compelling reason to jump on board with that.
Well, and the problem with the logic about the older models getting cheaper is that the new model, the new MacBook Pro, is $500 more expensive than it was in the last iteration.
Are you sure about that? Have you seen that? Because I looked at the pricing. I don't think that's right.
It's $2,500 versus the
Yeah,
MacBook Pro. The last iteration was 2,000 flat.
Because I know I spent about for my totally maxed out hardware. I think I spent about as much as the maxed out hardware for the new model is as well. So, yeah, I was actually happy that I assumed that they were going to kick it up by like $1,000. But
why would it get more? Why would it get more expensive? That makes no sense to me. Why would an iteration of hardware that's basically exactly the same as far as computing components get more expensive?
I don't think it's exactly the same. I think it's newer hardware.
Well, it's newer CPU.
Yeah.
Newer GPU.
Bigger hard drive.
Right? But the new CPU is priced the same on the market as the old CPU, and the new GPU is priced the same as the old GPU. The expensive components should be the same price. So it should just be another iteration.
Is that what you just said? They were the same price?
No, it's more expensive.
You just said they were the same price.
The components are.
Yeah.
The high-end component now is the same price as the high-end component was 3 years ago. So
and you think it should be cheaper?
It should be a straight-up upgrade. It should be whatever you paid for the one that you got 5 years ago, you should pay the same for a new version that's got the fastest hardware in it.
Yeah, that's what I said.
But it's not. It's more expensive.
I don't know. I went through the pricing model real quick. I haven't. Where are you getting your data from?
Reddit.
Oh, okay. I mean, that might be a better source than me because, like I said, I just eyeballed it. I would have to go back and look at my receipt to make sure I'm remembering correctly. But I when I was doing it, I was like, I think I paid so much for my maxed out MacBook, and I went through and did it again. I'm like, all right, that's about the same price. So I could be wrong.
The maxed out 15-inch is $2,800.
No,
and that is not. Yeah,
that's not the maxed out. The 15-inch? Oh, okay. No, there's a 15-inch and 13-inch, right?
Uh-huh.
No, the maxed out 15-inch ended up being like $4,400.
I'm sorry, the maxed out base model. If you go in and customize it, yeah, you can add 200 megahertz for $200. You can. That's ridiculous.
Well, it's the 4 terabyte hard drive that adds like I think $1,100 or something.
The 2 terabyte drive is $1,200. I mean, where did they pull these numbers out of?
Yeah.
They don't even say that it's like an Apple proprietary super SSD. Just go to Newegg and look at what a 2 terabyte SSD costs. It's not $1,200.
Dude.
Radeon Pro 4600.
Welcome to Apple. I mean, this is paying a premium for their hardware isn't anything new.
Right, but it isn't even their hardware that they're charging for. This is hardware that they're buying off the shelf and putting in a machine. They're charging you just
this is
because
not shocking
news yourself. It's not shocking. It's just the problem that I have with Apple.
Well, you can't do it yourself though. That's the thing with the Apple.
You can install your own SSD. Sure.
Dude. Thomas, you need to listen to me. You can't on an Apple. It's a solid state body.
Then that is a significantly bigger problem. You don't even get to open your own machine up to install RAM or a hard drive. I was sure that you could install a hard drive.
And what's even worse with the new hardware, and we're spending a lot of time on this Apple talk, but what's even worse with the new hardware is they've completely done away with USB ports. There are no USB ports on it.
It doesn't even support the iPhone 7 headphones.
And what's funny is it has a headphone jack.
Yeah.
It's like it has a headphone jack. Really? It has a headphone jack. That's okay.
But
the
headphones that come with your iPhone 7.
Bluetooth? Yeah, the Bluetooth.
Yeah, you have to have an adapter. No, not the Bluetooth one. The FireWire, the Lightning cable ones. The Lightning cable headphones that come with the iPhone 7 are not compatible with the new MacBook Pro. There's an adapter.
You need an adapter for everything with the MacBook Pro. Yeah, that's a again, talking about maybe buying last year's model. That's another great argument. I am not ready to get rid of my USB ports.
I have that file for you on a thumb drive. Do you want that file on the thumb drive? Oh, you don't have any USB ports? Oh, shoot.
Now, hey, listen.
At least you got it cheap, though, right?
You know what? You heard about the USB killer, though, right? At least you wouldn't have to. You'd protect yourself from that. There needs to be a Thunderbolt killer. Have you heard about this USB killer?
Is it the car battery thing that burns out your motherboard?
Yeah. Why'd you say car battery?
Because it's basically a supercapacitor in a thumb drive.
It's a capacitor, yeah, exactly. And you stick it in, and it just looks like a thumb drive, and you stick it in, it just smokes your system. You don't need, if there's just power to the system, it smokes it. It's horrifying, man. I can see some dumbass kid walking to Best Buy going boop, 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 boop.
That is... I mean, this is the thing about Mac.
Tom's just sitting there like, God damn, that's a good idea.
I'm looking at a $4,300 laptop that doesn't have USB, doesn't come with a dock, doesn't support iPhone headphones, and I'm thinking like, wow, this is gonna sell like hotcakes.
Now, I think I don't know. We'll see what happens. I wouldn't be surprised to see a quick hardware rev come out in 6 to 8 months where they say, okay, well, this is a little bit different. We consider this a scaled down model. We kept the USB ports. We did away with the touchscreen. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised, but we'll see what happens.
Do we have battery life on here?
I haven't even heard about battery life. No.
Oh, God, so much thinner though. 0.6 millimeters thinner.
Yeah, that's a huge difference, right?
God. Well, I can just get a whole new backpack now.
Now I'm going to jump back on the Apple bandwagon with you, though. I mentioned the guy who's working with us looking to buy hardware. I had loaned him my laptop because he's waiting to purchase a laptop. I had actually done this last week, and I had mentioned to you that I was doing the stream from a Chromebook, which I'm actually doing that again today. We're doing this live stream through a Chromebook, and it's worked out really well. And that was my plan. I was like, okay, well, I have a Linux laptop. It's a much older Linux laptop. It's very big, very bulky, very slow. And I was just going to use that for the weeks while my friend had my Apple laptop.
Yeah.
And I started realizing how much I could get done with my Chromebook. Now, I've always had this love-hate relationship with my Chromebook because it does well for what it's meant to do, which is basically a web browser. But when I try to push it too hard, it gets a little clunky. It doesn't have that good user experience. And I for years tried so hard to find a good tablet, Android tablet. I tried so hard to find a good Android tablet. And I had the Samsung. I even went with the Google Nexus. I have like 3 or 4 Android tablets around here, and none of them really worked well. And I had all but given up on tablets. That's why I ended up with the Chromebook. It was one of these Chromebooks where it had the touch screen and all. I was pretty happy with it. But as things happened to occur, the stars had aligned, and I ended up with an iPad Pro. And I was kind of, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll do this. I'm curious, and I didn't have a high level expectation out of it. But damn, man, I'm going to be honest with you. What I've been able to do on this iPad Pro, I'm pretty impressed with. And I do think this is the one area where Apple had kind of done it right. I mean, you still have the issue of proprietary stuff and the lightning bolt cable, and I mean, there's all that, but there's no question that there are companies out there who, when they design their apps for tablets, they still treat the iOS as like a first-class citizen. Yeah. So there are certain apps that I just ran on here. I'm like, wow, this is such a nicer experience on here than it was on the Android tablet.
And my experience with that is that iPad is a more stable tablet OS than Android is. I do have
which is disappointing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same problem Windows has with crashes in games and stuff. It's a matter of supporting so much hardware that you start to invite problems with drivers and
yeah, I can see that.
And Android is strong because it's flexible, but it's weak because it's flexible.
Right. So I'm real happy. I mean, I could never see myself replacing my desktop. We are the type of people, we will always be tied to a desktop. That will always be our work machine. I could, but I have started integrating my iPad. I mean, even now as we're talking, I have my iPad open to make notes on cuts and edits for this podcast. I've started integrating it more and more into my different workflows. So even when I'm working on my laptop, I might have my email open on my iPad, and as emails come in, I can just glance over, and if it's nothing I need to read, I'll just swipe it and archive it and just continue working, as opposed to going over the tab and archiving it that way.
Well, I work on a laptop, though. The laptop that you always see me with, I have a dock for that, and it's got two monitors out.
But it's a computer. It's a real computer.
Yeah, it's a heavyweight machine.
I can never replace. I will always need a computer, whether it's a laptop or a desktop.
You saw at the meetup Kalen's Surface, Microsoft
which is a real
Surface.
Computer as well.
It's a real computer, and boy, I was jealous.
Yeah,
that is a nice machine. I mean,
yeah, I thought about getting that as well.
They're more expensive than iPads, which I think is what's hurting them in the market, but
it's also a full laptop too. Yeah.
With a touch OS. Microsoft has done great work with the touch OS that they put on there.
Yeah. So with the iPad, I could definitely see my parents like never needing another computer. My mom doesn't need a computer. Yeah. I was convinced for a long time that she could live off of a Chromebook, but she still can't get her head away from having the separation of application. Like applications need to live on her system.
Right.
It can't be Google Docs. There has to be a Office application she opens to do her documents. Yeah, I think she could actually live off an iPad and just be perfectly fine. Okay, that was a lot of rambling. We're already over 30 minutes into the show. We've got a ton of news items to talk about. We should just start rapid firing through this.
Burn them down.
Yeah, so we should probably get started on that.
Well, in that same vein, Windows has been on a run lately with all the news we've been talking about. I mean, every time we talk about Microsoft, it's been positive lately.
This is true. In regards to open source you're talking about?
Yeah. The only negative we've had recently was the new laptops that were coming out that did not support Linux. They were running a Microsoft BIOS, and people were very upset that these laptops would not allow you to install Linux on them. Well, that has been resolved. Lenovo has released a patch for its Yoga series books, so now they can successfully run Linux.
That is fantastic to hear. Yeah.
There's also the
So
Microsoft's new foray into art.
I'm
The
sorry. Before you
Microsoft.
move on from that,
Sure.
Thomas,
Yeah. Go ahead.
that's a patch. So if I have an existing Yoga that previously couldn't run Linux, there's a patch I can download
It's
from
a BIOS. Yeah,
Lenovo.
it's a BIOS update.
It's a blessed BIOS update. Oh, okay. Well, that's fantastic. That's great to
Yeah.
hear. Okay. What you're moving on? I'm sorry.
Well, so Microsoft also showed off their new Creative Studio, which is just a beautiful, gigantic screen, touch interface, all in one computer, with a dial that you can stick anywhere on the screen, and it pulls up context-sensitive elements, and it's really similar to the OLED bar on the new Macs, but it just seems more. It just seems more practical.
Yeah.
The ability to move it around on the screen anywhere you want to, and still provide the same functionality. It's a context window, and then if you take it off the screen, you can use it as a speed dial or a dial sitting on your desk for doing functionality as well. And it also comes with the Microsoft Pen touch interface, and it's everyone I've talked to has been very impressed by it. It is expensive. I think it's $3,500, but boy, it's nice.
Yeah, I tell you, I did get the Apple Pen, and from everything I'm reading, I'm so jealous of the Windows Pen. I hear it's better touch. It actually has absolutely no functionality. I'm holding the pen in my hand. It is. I don't understand what separates this from any other stylus. I mean, it has good weight to it. It has a Bluetooth sync to it, which is weird because that means you have to keep it charged. I'm not exactly sure what the Bluetooth is doing, unless it's like a Bluetooth mouse. So maybe it's not actually. Yeah, I mean it has very little functionality. I use it because I like the handwriting. I typically handwrite notes, then I go back and type them out. It just works better for me. It's my flow. But yeah, it was expensive, and it does very little of anything.
And when you charge it, you stick it out the bottom of the iPad, right?
It looks it looks wrong.
Yeah. We miss you.
So we're still burning through RCs, huh?
Yeah, PHP 7.1 RC5. Although in this announcement they said we're almost at the end of the RC cycle. So hopefully next week RC6 or final. I don't know at this point.
I mean, I have mixed emotions about it. The one hand, I'm happy they're still tweaking it. They're still making it right. On the other hand, I'm kind of like, okay, well, let's release it. But then still, on the third hand, I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to just turn around and start upgrading all my machines to 7.1. So I'm in no hurry, really. Take your time.
I'll straight up do it.
Why? What's 7.1? What's 7.1 going to do for you?
It's gonna finish out the typing system. Returning nulls, typing methods correctly.
Mm-hmm.
It polishes out. It finishes what they started.
Speaking of PHP 7.1, we had some PHP 7 news as well. Laravel kind of went back and made some patches to Laravel version 4. So it's now at 4.2.20, and the big thing with that is it made it compatible to run on PHP 7. And they said ideally you should be upgrading to Laravel 5. But if you're in these situations where you can't, but you want to move to a supported PHP platform and get those benefits of performance out of it, they made a patch for Laravel 4, which I thought was good. So let's see what else we got.
Oh, you pick the next one. Boy,
I got my eyes on one. Like I said earlier, I had a topic I want to talk to you about, and you have a card for it. So, what do you want to talk about?
Well, Boy, I don't want to jump straight into Tom's doom and gloom hour, but
I mean, let's dive into Tom's doom and gloom, and then we'll pull ourselves back out with a few of the cards that we can pull back out with.
okay. Do you remember what my doom and gloom Tom element was last week? Do you remember what I was talking about?
Actually, it wasn't last week. I went back and looked at this. This is the thing I want to talk to you about.
You did.
It was in show 31 that you talked about this. Is
You're right.
this not the same? Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you about. Yeah, yeah, it is. I'm like,
Yes.
when I heard about the denial of service and all the DNS going down, and I heard what was causing it, I'm like, holy smokes! Tom told us about this 3 weeks ago on like episode 31. And so please, you have the floor. This is your doom and gloom highlight reel right here, buddy.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you noticed last week, but half the internet went down.
Oh, we noticed.
Yeah, GitHub, Netflix, a lot of stuff. Anything hosted by DYN DNS services. And this is now the current, as opposed to a couple weeks ago, it is now the current largest DDoS attack in history. This is a DDoS attack running off of the Mirai botnets that I was telling you about that are hosted off of Internet of Things devices like cameras and stuff like that. So, so yeah, the payoff happened faster than I expected from that source code being released because it very quickly took down the entirety of the internet.
Right. And now just to rewind a little bit, back on episode 31, you talked about the Internet of Things virus unleashed. And that was, you were talking specifically about some security expert who identified it, right?
Yeah, Brian Krebs was the first really attacked, or the first real victim of this. And he's a security researcher and consultant. And yeah, he published all this information about it, what happened, the 620 gigabyte per second attack on his site. But it appears that was just a test run because boy, did they go all out.
Yeah. Yeah, so I saw that, and I heard about when they started to dissect what had happened and started doing postmortems, and I heard that Internet of Things, and I'm like, holy crap, this story sounds very familiar.
Yeah, and on top of this, there are vendors who are making these kinds of webcams and stuff, and they issued a recall of the webcams along with a legal threat to sue anyone who blamed them for this vulnerability.
That's
so
classic.
Yes, it is the classic Hangzhou Zhongmai technology give and take.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rough. I mean, this is what happens when there isn't a standard out there for security, and anyone can make anything they want and tell other people to just plug it into your network. It's safe. The thing is most people not at this point have learned you don't take a USB drive and plug it into a work computer. But,
yeah, because it could kill your computer.
But
okay, we got to stay on point. Come on, stay on point. Move forward.
You'll buy a camera and you'll plug it into your network.
Come on.
So,
what else you got?
Back to the doom and gloom. Google quietly dropped. This is doom and gloom. Absolutely.
Okay.
Google has quietly dropped the ban on personally identifiable web tracking from their contract. So what this meant was back in the day when they said, yeah, we'll host Gmail for free, and we won't use your information to advertise to you. Everyone was wary of Google's always watching. Google's always watching.
Mm-hmm.
But Google promised, we're not reading it to identify you. We're reading it to target ads towards the content you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they've removed the lines that said, we're not going to target you by your name. So what this means is, along with a purchase of DoubleClick, which is a large database of web browsing records, behaviors, and advertising reports, you could basically be targeted in an ad published by Google now. So you could theoretically go to a website that had a banner that said, "Hey, Thomas, we understand that your daughter's pregnant. Would you like to buy a gun?"
Oh, jeez.
Now,
All right.
I'm not saying that that's going to happen. What I'm saying is that in the terms of service previously, they said it would not happen, and that
Mhm.
line was removed from the terms of service. So it'll be a much more subtle change. They're not just going to start calling people out by their name in targeted ads. But that data is now available for Google when they want to. That hard line between who you are and the anonymous browsing habits or email or whatever it is you do, that line has been removed.
Hmm.
So if a company executive decides that they want to do this thing, the legal department cannot tell them no, they can't do that. To me, that's doom and gloom. To me, that's bad news.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Yeah.
It was less than a year ago that Google changed their motto, which used to be "Do no evil,"
Mm-hmm.
and it appears that they're sliding down the slippery slope. So it was.
Okay. Next card.
Well, that's it for the doom and
Doom and
gloom.
gloom.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's it for the doom and gloom.
I'm interested. So, with the user groups, I don't think I've shared this with you yet, Thomas. With user groups, we have a tendency to try to schedule presenters out, right? Because
Sure.
it's very tough. Like next month, we don't have a presenter for either the PHP user group or the Laravel user group. So now we got to scramble. This week, I found out that we'd been working on setting up a speaker, and that finally came through. Which reminds me, another person offered to do a presentation in January, which I have to let them know we need to push them to February. But in January, we're going to do a hangout with Adam Watham.
Really?
Yeah. So I haven't told you this, huh?
No.
No. Yeah. Marcus has been working
I'm
on
appalled.
this. I know,
Oh,
Marcus.
my replacement. Yes.
Your replacement.
I see.
Exactly. I mean, I had him get approval through Evan, but yeah, Marcus has been
Very
working
important.
on
Evan does have oversight on everything now.
this. So yeah, Marcus came up to me and says, "Hey, yeah, we're all set for January to do a hangout with Adam Webb." And I'm like, "Oh, that is fantastic!" And lo and behold, I see you have a story here on Adam Wathan, and we're not going to say anything that pisses him off, are we?
Oh no. I absolutely loved this.
Okay.
So a user on Reddit said, "Why are conditional loops evil?" And the first line was, "I won't mention any names, but some members of the Laravel community are preaching the fact that conditional statements and loops are bad." Well, guess who replied?
The guy who's basically written the book on it.
Yeah, the person he wasn't naming. And it was fantastic. It was great. He broke down some great examples and said, "Well, here's what it is I'm saying when I say that in something more."
Who's he? Who's he?
Adam Wathan.
There you go.
Yes, the I thought that was clear. I thought we had run that.
I thought so too, but I figured we should make it
Fair
official.
Yeah. So he gave out a really well thought out, concise response, and then people chimed in with their comments on it. And boy, did it get me interested in functional programming.
It really did. I mean, I've seen him. Obviously, I saw him do his talk at Laracon, and where he walks through examples and just making everything collections and like, okay, let's filter everything down through collections instead of doing these for each loops. And you're like, wow, that just really seems cool. I mean,
Yeah.
I want to try that. So yeah, and that's the thing. We had a discussion earlier about functional programming, and that's about the extent of my knowledge. And it wasn't from Adam Watham. It was from another podcast I was listening to where they were talking about languages that are being built specifically for functional programming, and one of the big things they were trying to eliminate were loops, were loops in general. For each and any sort of loop. I know that was a big.
I tried to look into this more, and all I could really find was a Wikipedia page which was written in classic Wikipedia style, which is, if you're going to put it on the back of a book, that works fine, but if you're going to try and learn off of it, that's kind of a hard way to go about it.
Mm-hmm.
And after seeing this on Reddit, I wasn't really going to bring it up, but then Adam tweets, in honor of some pro-loop Reddit propaganda, refactored to collections is 40% off using the coupon LOLReddit.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So I'm really digging this guy. It's gonna be awesome to have him at the meetup.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I don't know if he has it out yet, but he was coming out with a whole video series that you could subscribe to, and he has some good stuff. So yeah, it's interesting stuff. I don't. Honestly, it was very much like your talk, Thomas, on polymorphic models, where I'm like, why am I not doing this more? See, that's such a great idea. I just need to get in that mindset when I'm looking at my code to think about refactoring to a collection or these polymorphic models that, as I was explaining to you at the meetup, for me, I would have just created multiple pivot tables, which would, in hindsight, be a terrible idea. There would be no need for, not a terrible idea. I guess that's bad phrase, but there's a better way of doing it, and that was this polymorphic model that you're talking about.
Yeah, and it depends on, that was also what he said on the Reddit thread, was that it's not always the right way to do things.
Right. Exactly.
Doing things both ways, or doing things the ways that work for you, is still the most important thing, which is something I know Jeffrey Way has reiterated over and over again. Do it the way that works.
Yeah. Yeah, if you saw his talk at Laracon, he definitely goes through some scenarios where you're like, yeah, that does seem to make a lot more sense, and it also adds performance to the application. So,
boy, we're gonna have to tell the editor to cut out the Apple section.
I'm starting to think that we're running really long
10-minute podcast.
We have an upgrade to Spark. Spark's moved to version 3, and much like a lot of the other Laravel releases of recent, the big thing is that now it has a VueJS 2.0 used on the front end. So just worth mentioning. I just tossed that out there for anybody using Spark.
And I'd like to hear from our listeners to see if we have any Spark users out there, because I don't know how popular a language it really is. I know Laravel's very popular, but Spark I'm not sure about.
Yeah, the framework, it's not really a language, but yeah, it's built on Laravel. But yeah, it's very specific. It's a very specific use case. I actually have a couple of projects queued up where I'm going to try to use Spark, but I just haven't had the opportunity to start implementing them. And I really, really need to get around to implementing them, because we're trying to build some things internally at work, and a couple of them require Spark. So I need to get on the horse on that.
And I think I'm gonna leave this next item for next week.
All right, that's fair enough. We'll leave people in suspense.
Yeah, it's a good one too. Ooh, boy.
All right. Well, this was a chock full of information show. We are at an hour. We've done so good at getting right down about 30 minutes for 2 or 3 shows there, and we're back up to an hour. I blame you.
Yeah,
I blame Apple.
It feels like we're running long, but we have to remember that for 25 episodes we went for an hour and a half each time. So.
All right. Well, this is probably a good point to wrap up for tonight. Appreciate everybody listening. This has been episode 34, and I am Eric Van Johnson.
I'm Tom Rideout.
Keep it ugly.
Keep it ugly.
Use a password manager.
Damn it! You ruined it. We said keep it ugly in sync. We've got to take that as like the way to close out. We need that clip of us both saying, "Yeah."
That's awesome.
We need
go back.
We need to keep it ugly as our closing. Like we need that clip as our closing clip for every show.
I agree.
We should pre-record an outro.
We have, dude. You really got to listen to the podcast. We have a complete outro pre-recorded.
No, I mean the goodbye, the awkward silence when I say my name, and then we both just stare at the screen for a second.
Keep it ugly. Yeah, I like to keep it ugly. All right. I'm gonna kill the recording.
I think we've proven we just don't need John anymore.
Who?
Yeah, I know.